I have recently become tired of the massive and long battles of 40k, and yes, I will enjoy 1000 point games and similar where I can find people who want to play at that size. Horus Heresy is good, and while it reminded me of the fun of 4th edition 40k, it also reminded me of all the bad things that have otherwise been removed from most modern wargames. It's more irritating that you can't have alien forces, but I did like the Challenger duels, they were fun! That was a good minigame within a game. So the solution should surely be to play some skirmish games, but I've not enjoyed skirmish games recently. New Kill Team didn't hit, Infinity hit wrong, and while I like Mordheim, it is old, I can't get many people to play it, and slings are too powerful and light armor should be 2 gold crowns at most, not 20. A good middle ground that hits right, is weird and cool and gets a platoon on the field, is Konflikt 47. So we're going to look at what it does right that other wargames, 40k especially, need to do in the future. To play the game, you just need the core rules. The army lists are all free on the Warlord Games website, as it should be. The get started rules are also there, and they define the ways to play, that a pickup game is not the same as a tournament game. Something that 40k really needs to emphasize in the next editions. Otherwise, a lot of people will be playing tournament mode, and that's going to feel strange for new players if they have to go from 0 to 100 instantly. And the Konflikt 47 core rules has all the tables you need in the back of the book, and an index, which has all of the rules sections and all the special rules and the weapon names. This is good! If I ever want to look up what some special weapon does or their ability, it's easy to just flick to the index, then flick to the page I need, rather than trying to find the weapon section, then trying to guess what kind of weapon a heavy machine gun and a tank is. It's not a tank weapon, it's somewhere else. But I can find it with the index. Konflikt 47 is World War II, but even more weird. There are Axis werewolves and zombies, Soviet bear soldiers, British automatons that look like the Iron Giant in a Tommy helmet, Japanese stealth tech getting them closer before they charge with a samurai sword, and samurai-looking power armor, and the US have Fireflies which perform hit-and-run attacks like 40k Seraphim, or like the Saga of Tanya the Evil flight gear. If you play Bolt Action, you basically know the rules for Konflikt 47 already. If you don't know it, it's an alternating unit activation with a very simple d6 roll to hit, roll to wound system that you'll be familiar with from other wargames, like the Lord of the Rings Middle-earth strategy battle game. It takes about 2 hours to play, which is a good length. The basics of playing: for each unit you have, 1 order die goes in the bag, and you could use tokens or different coloured d6s if you wanted. Your opponent's dice are in the same bag. You rummage around and you take out 1 die, and whoever's it is activates one of their units to move and shoot, or whichever orders they choose. Then they are done for that round. The die is placed next to them, and a new die is drawn to activate another unit. It might be one of yours, it might be one of your opponents. It's good for thinking on a more tactical level. It isn't just going, I'll do a unit, then you do a unit, waiting for someone to come out in the open, and then you can counterattack them. Maybe one of your units will be entirely overwhelmed before they can activate. Which order are you going to activate your units? There's a lot of thought goes into it. And while I don't think 40k should change to be like this, something I talked about in another video, but for game design, it's a really good system that works great for these platoon level games, when 30 to 40 models is all you need. I like playing the Commonwealth, the British forces from across the world, Canada, India, the UK, let me just check the countries that watch me the most, Australia! And you can have your battle set anywhere because the Commonwealth will be fighting in any theatre. In Europe, in the Middle East, in East Asia. And I like the intelligence advantage from Bletchley Park to choose whose dice comes out first at the start of a round once per game. It's perfect for those pivotal moments. You've sent a unit out at the end of your turn, you know that you're going to get to go next so you can activate them again. Then they can shoot the enemy or get to safety as required. What seemed like a crazy gamble is actually perfectly planned. And I like the idea of a semi-elite army, or quite elite army, continuing that mix of tradition and ingenuity that is the British way. I know because I'm British. Britain is the combined arms force, good infantry backed up by enhanced tanks. And you can have any of the 5 factions fighting each other. The British Commonwealth and their robots, the USSR and their continued use of massed infantry, the Axis, which has their advanced infantry, and also horrifying mutants, the stealthy Japanese, or the Americans who have gone full God is with us kind of mode. It's manifest destiny taken to the extreme. The USSR has gone on their own, separating from their capitalist allies, and there is growing distrust between Japan and the European Axis, and between Britain and America. I've played a few games at this stage, and with various factions, but I think the Axis are the most powerful. They have so many crazy Rift units that are defense value 7. That's hard for other factions to deal with them. So on a d6, with modifiers, you need to roll a 7 to successfully wound them. British machine men firing machine guns with lots of shots might put down a German zombie, but it will get back up quickly. Zombies are defense value 6, and your average soldier in World War II is defense value 4. Other monsters, like the disgusting werewolf, are defense value 7. And if you were wondering, if I get bitten by a Nazi zombie, do I become a zombie and a Nazi, or just a zombie? Well, the fascists in the Axis are not in power. The mad scientists of the Green Vault are leading, and you can be more cartoonishly evil than you could be if your models were wearing the spicy windmill symbol. Over 300 years, this Green Vault Illuminati has been planning this perfect takeover of Germany, and their first creation was bringing certain people back to life as zombies. That's much easier to sell to parents, rather than, "Mammy, I want an SS tank squadron. Look at all the spicy windmill symbols you get on this transfer sheet." No, evil scientists is much more sellable to people. And not many parents are going to look into the law and weigh up the ethics of the Illuminati that knew a power rift was going to open in Dresden and planned another Night of the Long Knives to eliminate the mustached leadership and take control. They just see, well, it's German, but it's not fascist, so that's okay. The British Commonwealth has felt the weakest of the armies, even though I'm doing rather well with them. Robot people, but carrying more machine guns, just don't do as much damage as you hoped. They work against massed waves of Japanese or Soviet infantry, but not against Axis horrors or proper Rift units that you get specialized in Konflikt 47. 63 points for a Mark II robot is maybe a bit steep. They improve the Mark I automated infantry if they're near them, and you maybe don't want them near each other because they need to be spread out to counter lots of different threats. But the Mark I infantry are already pretty powerful, so having -1 to hit when they don't get the -1 to hit penalty from moving doesn't matter so much. Some of the British special rules could do with a rework. Automated recovery only applies to Rift units, which cuts out a lot of vehicles. And computational systems isn't available on all of the vehicles. Only some of the vehicles, and then you need to pay extra for it. If you remove the requirement for automated recovery only for Rift units, and gave it to all of the vehicles, and you could give computational systems to all veteran walkers for free, that would be better. I think the automated infantry need to be a little bit cheaper and feel a bit more like a horde. Thematically, it suits the army. They are being mass-produced from the world's only fully automated production lines. They automate themselves, and the core book repeatedly mentions concerns that there are so many automatons that they're outnumbering the civilian workforce, and they're taking away regular home jobs. There won't be any civilian jobs left after the war. That's a big concern. I know the setting wants to be grim, but making it so that the British Army were mostly automatons would make them more distinct and better match the starter set. The automatons could be the basic infantry, and then the British otherwise are an elite faction with small numbers of powerful stuff. They just don't put out enough damage. I like the Commonwealth starter set. That gives you about 1,125 points of troops. That is practically a whole army for about £100. I would love for Warlord Games to send me one. But you compare that to 40k, where a similarly priced Combat Patrol gives you about 400 points. Maybe. The smallest non-Combat Patrol games of like 1,000 points will need 3 of these boxes, and I know people may be buying 4 or 5 to get a full 2,000 point army. Unless you try and play the Combat Patrol game mode, which not a lot of people do. So Konflikt 47 is comparably so much easier and cheaper to start, and you can supplement it with regular bolt action kits. They're pretty cheap. And for Warlord Games to break deeper into the monopoly that Games Workshop has over tabletop wargames, that is what they need to do. But these games are a good length, with not an overwhelming number of models to paint, and you can play 2 games in a night, and you don't need that many models. Generally, it's pretty hard to kill a man in Konflikt 47. You shoot and all shots hit on a base 4+, regardless of soldier experience. If you moved, most guns are at -1 to hit, so you hit on a 5+. The wound roll is then based on the enemy's experience. Veteran troops know how to avoid getting shot, inexperienced soldiers will get shot and then look to the NCO to see if they're allowed to mention it. A moving squad with 12 rifles firing at veteran troops, hitting on a 5+, wounding on a 5+, might kill 1 man. But you shoot for the pin markers that make it harder for the enemy to fight back. If you are out in the open, you die faster because you are in the open and the enemy is using a thing called bullets. But in ruins or behind a wall, you get a cover save of some sort, which is usually the only way you get a save. But it's more easy to kill a unit outright if they get blasted by rift weapons. Because in bolt action, when you shoot a unit, you might kill 1 model. In Konflikt 47, the amount of extra shots and +1 penetration, which is +1 to wound, that rift units get will tear apart half a veteran squad. Or a werewolf will get into combat and kill a man. Can only be hurt if the enemy rolls a 6 to hit, followed by another 6, so that a lucky bayonet could potentially skewer the monster, but that's unlikely, and then the werewolf has wiped out an entire squad. Another thing I like is the cross-compatibility. You can have a standard bolt action army play in Konflikt 47 against a player with a proper Konflikt 47 army. Ideally, you would bring late war bolt action units. However, the bolt action units will fall down against rift units. Rift units in power armor, or the automatons and the hybrid monsters are wounded on a 6 or a 7, usually, so tanks are needed to fight these infantry, but you will be using armor penetration shells instead of high explosives, which can feel a bit odd. But it gives tanks a bit more to do, other than fight the enemy tanks. So while you can bring a bolt action army to a Konflikt 47 fight, you will want heavy machine guns, anti-tank rifles, armor penetration wherever you can get it to fight those rift units. Power armor will be present, which makes enemy units 1 harder to hurt. Regular troops in power armor have defense 5, and veterans can only be wounded on a 6. The units you bring to combat that will be different, so the squad sizes you bring should also be different. If you can be wiped out by losing a close assault against a German werewolf, losing 6 men is not as bad as losing 12. There's different thoughts go into the army construction. I have some British infantry, but they're inexperienced. Now, British doctrine is to keep the inexperienced troops too quiet to fronts or in the back lines, and that is what they do in the game. Move the robots forward, and the newest recruits from the Raj with their basic rifles under Lieutenant Singh hang around on objectives or rush in to grab intelligence when it's clear. But my Mark 1 automatons have the heavy machine gun, which is penetration 1, that is necessary. And I've learnt not to use their rift ability unless they desperately need to take down an enemy unit, because high voltage rules can fry models on a 5+. The strongest ability is Guts. You spend your point of Guts to modify dice rolls against them. If the commander's power armored squad was going to foobar and commit friendly fire, no. No, they don't. Or the best one, a rift unit, like my automatons, take their turn and gun down some enemies. Then I use the Guts to return their activation dice to the bag so they can activate again this turn. It's really powerful, and that's why I understand an FAQ was introduced, rightly so, to change this to be a once per game ability. The army lists being free is great, and it means that Warlord Games can add more units to these army lists as they are released. Like how Games Workshop does it with faction packs, they stick in another unit into the pack. There's also good consolidation of a lot of World War II infantry. You want to represent Volkssturm? Use inexperienced Volksgrenadiers. You want Eastern Front elites? Same unit, but pay for the veteran profile. This could be improved by having some of the rules on the unit. Some of the rules are there listed, so don't make me look up what Fearless is in a separate book. The weapon profiles could also be included in this PDF. That makes army building easier. I can see the 2 profiles of the different weapons so I can decide if one is worth paying 25 points more for, rather than flicking through into the book to check one weapon profile and then clicking to another page to check the other weapon profile. PDFs are not as constrained by printing layouts, they can be more easily updated. And the British platoon commander in Galahad armor has the company commander rule for some reason. As a PDF, again, that could be changed rather quickly. So Konflikt 47 does a lot of good things that other game companies can learn from. The size of the game, no rerolls for shooting. It's all based on modifiers. The cost per model is so much less than Games Workshop. So when I complain about 40k models costing so much, this is the comparison. 1500 points for like £150. And the game is compatible with other game systems. You can play Konflikt 47 with bolt action 3rd edition models. Like you should be able to use Horus Heresy models in 40k. And there are free army rules with the points online for free. Let me know if you want to hear more about Konflikt 47. My darlings and viewers, have a great day.